hardware. I almost think like any step change in technology, like what we're seeing today with AI, requires new hardware. It requires new form factors. And then people say, oh, well, you're biased, right? You work there at an AI hardware company. It's like, no, I work here because I find it interesting. So the more interesting question, and what I want to get into with Jesse and some other people tonight, and Aravind from a software perspective, the more interesting question is like, why this specific hardware? Like, why are we doing what we've built with the R1? You know, what does that unlock for LLMs like Perplexity? We're going to have Bo back in the house from Brilliant Labs. And he's got his own form factor with hardware as well. And we want to know, like, why that hardware? What are the decisions that led you to this path? And with that, I will open up the floor, I think, to Jesse first. So, Jesse, the R1 has been crazy in the last 2 months since you announced it at CES. Let's talk about the journey that you went on to find that form factor. Like, why is this the thing? Okay, so while we get that figured out with Jesse, Aravind, you in the house?
I'm here. Hello.
So, Aravind, what do you think this new model of hardware unlocks for what you're doing with Perplexity and all these new form factors that are popping up?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, our goal has always been to change the paradigm of search, right? Like from moving from links to answers. Now, obviously, you feel that, like in terms of your day-to-day productivity, like sifting through links and reading, opening a bunch of tabs and stuff like that. But I think you most viscerally feel it the moment you don't even have to like type in questions into a search box and just have an answer, like or just visually reading things. Just a simple argument. You cannot have 10 blue links read out to you, but you can have an answer read out to you. So clearly, this is disruptive, right? You can have a voice-to-voice conversation once you have a working answer engine. Now, obviously, you don't want it to be in the current ChatGPT or Perplexity or Gemini style where the answer is so long that you would rather just read it than like have it read out to you. So you need to tune it for conciseness. But the moment it's tuned for conciseness and much smaller and like clear, clean answers, we're going to be able to have like these hands-free AI conversations. We're just walking around and we're curious about things, and we just have an AirPods, and then we ask something, and we have the answer read out to us. It's sort of a true thought partner for us while going on long walks, or like we are in the middle of a conversation with another of our friends, and then we just can quickly take our rapid device and just push a button and ask a question, and it resolves the arguments for us. Instead of being subjective, we can be objective. So there's like all sorts of new experiences that can only be created when you have the answer engine paradigm, and that's what I'm pretty excited about.
Nice. And I think your model so far, I think I've been really impressed that you're very open to working with all different companies that are popping up, like ourselves and nothing. And I see you people all over Twitter saying they got their Perplexity credits from this purchase or that purchase. Do you have a plan or a way of thinking regarding how people might interact with Perplexity differently depending on what kind of hardware device they might be using?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like for example, the sort of push to activate model that Rabbit has is pretty interesting. Like I could imagine. I'm just talking about myself. Like I could imagine having it while I'm in a desk or something, and I'm trying to like just ask a question, and I don't want to get distracted from my phone. Um, I could also imagine parents preferring people like their kids to have these AI native devices like Rabbit over phones, because like you can potentially just use it for productivity and like learning new things versus getting distracted through social apps. So there's all sorts of things that I can see non-phone devices do that phones won't be able to do. And as for a phone, like obviously you want it to be like pretty smart. Like you want to have the ultimate search or knowledge app there, just like a regular app. And you also want some AI native OS that just is able to like do tasks for you on the phone, like ordering your food on DoorDash or something like that. And I think we are going to see, like, stuff that's tied to our phone number, um, better done through our phones, and stuff that's sort of more useful for us to just observe and interact with the world could be done without a phone. I'm not clear yet. Like, obviously, if I'm walking, I would prefer to wear a glass, like brilliance frame, and then, like, watch and ask questions, right? So I don't want to even take my phone out, and I want it to be integrated with a nice AirPods like device too. So honestly, is like, we don't want like too many AirPods. Like, it'd be nice to have one AirPods for all your phone, and like Rabbit and like Frame, all of these in like one single pod. So it really depends on what kind of experience you want to create. Um, but I guess I would just say, long answer short, vision form factor is one thing, push form factor is one thing, and then like regular form factor is another thing.
Awesome. Well, great to hear your perspective. And I think that makes sense with kind of what I've been seeing from you guys with, you know, being willing to partner with everybody and understanding that this is a, an open space and that people are going to want to interact it with differently depending on, all kinds of hardware that they might have. Jesse, we have you now in the space. We got it sorted. Let's talk a
Yep.
little bit about what I was saying before. I'd really love to hear your thoughts on how you landed on the R1. Like, what was the process for the design that made you feel like this is the thing that we want to do?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me all right now?
Yes, you sound perfect.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry for that. So I think I totally agree that we're still trying to figure out what is the definitive form factor, uh, looking towards the future generation of AI native operating systems. I think this is I actually look about this the other way around. Like, I think backwards. I think if the AI operating system is good enough and truly represent the future human machine interaction, I think all form factor is needed, right? Exactly like what we experienced with previous generation. We had a handheld device. Later, we have a kind of like a tablet form factor. We obviously have a laptop, professional desktop, wearables, and also earbuds, sound only. Um, Now we're slowly moving to something like a totally virtual environment like VR and AR and XR stuff. I think if the operating system is shifting, I think that the human demand is not really shifting because there's we're all humans and we have certain category of tasks and information that we want and we need to be taken care of by technology. I think that remains unchanged for a very, very long time. However, the form factor is only just a vehicle to host what's inside. I think hardware itself, the core of hardware, the concept of hardware is that it's a piece of tool that hosts whatever the functionalities inside, right? So I think what's inside actually matters more. And when we start doing the R1 design in the early phase, I think I showed the community members that one of the first early prototypes that hand built by myself is actually a Raspberry Pi with a screen and microphone. I think we at least I'm fully aware that this is still super early days. That I don't think anyone can just have enough luck that just to get the formula 100% accurate by the first try. That's unlikely to happen in history if you look back. But we know that I think I have this private conversation with Avrient from Perplexity, and I actually met Bobak from Brilliant Labs in our office, in our headquarters. I think I did bring this point that uh, the thing is we're in such early phase that a lot of people are trying different form factors. Um, but when we started doing R1, we asked one simple question, be like, what are the major shift between previous generation of operating system versus all of us trying to enable now on our own platform and devices and software and hardware, etc. I think it's every single generation, major generation of technology leap that leads to a more intuitive way of how human can communicate with machines and how human can utilize um, the technology to accomplish the tasks. And if you think about all the way back to the early days, that we need to learn what computer speaks, right? We need to learn program language, and we are only allowed to communicate to the devices in a way that they can understand, because the devices are not so smart enough, so that we have to take extra steps to be able to communicate with the devices. Um, and I think roughly around 10 years ago, then we have, starting from Siri, and all the way behind that is actually Stanford Research Institution, or SRI, that later incubated Nuance, that Nuance incubated the early technology of Siri. That, we are in the stage that, okay, maybe there's something called, speech to text and text to speech. There's dictation engine, and there's something to understand human intention, technology like NLP, natural language processing, or natural language understanding, NLU. That was before the current transformer, or language models, or we call LLMs. Uh, and we kind of like see the opportunity back then, but it takes a long time for the fundamental technology to be able to catch up. And I do remember 10 years ago when I was working in Raven Tech, that we're really struggling with NLP and NLU, even though that was the best technology we can get hands on by then. That effectively that means that we need to manually assemble a huge menu to the device, and then things like, okay, we have a list of 70 sentences, and all these 70 sentences means that people want to play Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger from Daft Punk. Then we have to manually assemble all those lists for the computer to understand. But still, if you think about back then, that's already a huge step forward in comparison with we have to go to the terminal mode, or we have to like figure out some command line, and build an actual app using some sort of computer language. What we saw from the breakthrough of the language models, transformer in particular, is that we believe the intention now has been solved, and this leads to a possibility of, I believe everyone at some point, uh, you know you're gonna be influenced by the sci-fi movies, all the great sci-fi movies here. I grew up as a kid. I want to build my Javas. A lot of people tried or have tried to build their own version of Javas. I think the general direction lean towards next generation is that we're trying to completely be able to talk to the computer as if we're talking to the human. And now, if you break those down, that means multiple perspectives needs to be taken care of. First of all, you have to make sure the computer understands by your natural language, whatever language you're speaking, or whatever language you're typing into it, right? So natural language not only necessarily means that it's voice, it also means that direct input like texting. Then after the computer or after the system understand by your natural language, then it needs to understand your intentions. I think what convinced us is that the transformers or language models 100% solve your intentions. And then we start working on the action part, which I'm gonna maybe I'll go down a little bit of detail later on. But in general, come back to the form factor. Because of all these great technology advance and progresses, that we do believe that we should offer a form factor that is intuitive enough. And I think any tools ever created by human, if the functionality is intuitive enough, if the way that we interact with this particular tool is intuitive enough, that form factor stays and remains unchanged for a very, very long time. And that's why you don't hear like there's 200 startups every year claim to build a better hammer, right? Because if you think about a tool like a hammer, that's been figured out. I mean, the sole purpose of the hammer, or the main purpose of the hammer, is to smash on nails. And the form factor of the hammer is so intuitive that you don't necessarily need to get a menu to figure out how to use a hammer. You just grab it and smash the nails. And such intuitiveness only takes external forces by the user, or and follows the physics law. and because of the form factor of the hammer is intuitive enough, um, that remains for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. So we started to think about, okay, we want to find a good balance between what you guys are already familiar with, which is, mostly just a piece of screen, which is the current smartphone generation, as well as how can we push, the interaction more intuitive, um, as well as knowing that this is the early day of figuring out what is the actual correct form factor, trying to set up some emotion relates to some of the best gadgets that you actually enjoy. So this is the true story. So I think, I showed this to Discord channel before, but I actually went on Amazon and ordered couple items. I ordered a dozen of Tamagotchi. I ordered a couple of the walkie-talkies, and then obviously I cannot order Pokédex because that's a fantasy item. So I told my team, let's just find a button, and I want user to use the button as if they're using a walkie-talkie, because if you think about a walkie-talkie, that form factor is being used on the most demanding and critical voice related tasks, right? Like the um, the military guys are using walkie-talkie. The the medical guys are using walkie-talkie, and the law enforcement are using walkie-talkie. Those are very critical sectors that they demand a 100% reliable and responsive way of interacting with voice. And that's why I said, okay, let's do a walkie-talkie plus Pokédex plus Tamagotchi, because again, we want to kind of like set up some sort of an emotional relate to the generation, especially for the young generation of the kids, that we want to make sure that they love this item, this particular item, knowing that probably we wouldn't be able to get it right 100% right in the first try. And also I want to mention is that we are super sensitive on the price. Obviously, I started looking at who's out there. We saw there's a couple of the new AI related hardware popping out, and I think by the time we started working on R1, we already kind of like saw Humane AI Ping, and I actually ordered one back in November when it first opens for order. We start thinking about the questions like, okay, we know for a fact this is super early, both hardware and software, and we know that there's a long way to go to curate the best experience on the device so that it become mainstream. Um, and then what are the trade-offs? And we know we're a new startup. What are the trade-offs? The trade-offs are, okay, let's be easy on the entry, right? Let's not make a $1,000 device or even $700 device. Let's figure out a way that we can lower the cost, well, as long as we hold the standard of what we believe on the design and build quality wise. Let's find the lowest possible price. So I actually told my team, be like, it has to be a $200 device, no more than that. And if you put all those parameters in the equation, here's the R1. So it's a result of the chain of thoughts of all this related status quo and facts, and it's a carefully orchestrated strategy that why we want to build a product like such at this moment and offer this particular interaction.
Nice. That makes a lot of sense to me. But I think it's one thing to say, we have to look at the parameter of price and all these kind of logistical things, which are obviously true, but also like having gotten to know you, I know that you have very strong thoughts and feelings about design. Like I would say you're as much of a design guy as a product guy. And what I love about when there's a new kind of step change in this market and you see diversity of hardware is actually we can throw out all those assumptions about previous generations of hardware and be like, I like buttons, I like scroll wheels, like I like glasses, like we should try all of these things and like you said, figure out what works, because lots of different things might work. Like there's not necessarily just going to be one thing for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. I think, speaking of the designs, I think I'm not sure the average age here, but there's such a big gap between generations on the product that they're getting, and I personally feel very sad for the younger generations that they were born after 2000, maybe even younger than that, because when I grew up, it's the best time. I would arguably say it's a golden time. It's the best. I was born in 1990, by the way. When I grow up, it's the best time to test around all different weird form factors and gadgets and new things that probably offer the same level of functionality. I would say before 90s, it was right after somewhere around 70s. That's another very golden time that a lot of new things pops up and a lot of weird things shows up. But I was having conversation with one of our youngest interns here, and I do believe she was born um, uh, 2003 or 2004, and I started thinking about, you know, when she grew up, like I started thinking about, oh, what are the years she's getting the first phone, and I started thinking about what are the first years she started getting the first laptop and computer, and then I realized there's such big gap between these two generations of experiences and I the perspectives towards designs in these hardwares, because for that young intern, her first phone ever is an iPhone 7. And how crazy is
Yeah.
that? And if you think about when I grew up, I would just to save money to buy a sidekick because that phone opens like that,
I
even though
loved
I
my
had
sidekick.
probably.
I loved it.
Yeah, and I saved my money for my first Game Boy, and for my first PlayStation Portable, PSP, and then later on, there's a lot of weird things showing up and coming up. Like you can't even catch up with it. But I think for the younger generation, everything in front of them are like piece of panel, aluminum, three colors, and that's about it. So I think they're missing this entire memory of just being able to present with quite unique designs from every single company on their every single project, and all these designs varies, and they don't stick for a long time before a completely new thing pops up. So I think when we're talking about this internally with teenage engineer folks, for those who know teenage engineering, they're famous for making unique designs that you don't quite understand what this can do, but once you buy it, you completely become a fan of it, and you will arguably say this is the best thing ever. So I really learned a lot by my board of director roles over that company over the years. We did a collaboration first time back in 2016, 2017. We did Raven H, Raven R for my previous project, and it's such an amazing process that how the actual people that focus on design, that the way they work, the idea that Robert assembled the most complete comprehensive list of AI companies and AI founders on this platform on X, and I think we should invite Robert as a speaker as well.
Yes.
Robert, let me know if you are willing to talk, and would super curious about your perspective because you've seen it all. You spend you spend hours and hours chatting with founders, observing, and obviously you have such strong tech background as well. Would love to have you as speaker too.
And
Yeah,
Jesse, I'd like to apologize. I'm going to have to leave in a little bit, but
No problem. We'll get your question answered by the community so that you can go. Thanks, Vino. Appreciate
yeah,
it.
really appreciate having you here, Bernard. I did send a request to Robert. I don't know if he's is available to speak. Robert is, as Jesse said, absolute legend. I am old enough to remember his iconic Google Glass photo. I don't know if he wants people to remember that, but Robert, let's see your thoughts.
We can forget that.
I thought he's a Vision Pro guy now. No? You defend so hard on the Vision Pros all over the
I
place.
have my Vision
Yeah, go
Pro,
ahead,
but
Robert.
that's not a form factor that average everyday consumer is going to wear to a shopping mall or take to a baseball game or use in their everyday life yet. It will shrink over the next few years and become something that'll be useful there. But thank you. No, I'd rather hear from Vinod because Vinod is a legendary investor. It's a real honor to speak to you again, Vinod.
Oh, great to talk to you.